Let's look at these two rectangles and try to figure out if they are similar figures. The first thing I need to ask myself is, are the corresponding angles congruent? So I do want you to know that we can refer to angle A using this notation, angle A like that, or sometimes you're going to see three letters in the angle name. So this might be referred to as DAB. What you need to realize is that it's the middle letter that is the angle that we are talking about. So if you see that middle letter is A, then you know that it is referring to this angle right here. So when we look at angle A, does that corresponds to angle W, are they congruent? Not only are A and W congruent, but all of the angles are congruent because these are rectangles, and we know that in rectangles, all four angles are congruent. The second thing we need to ask ourselves is, are the side lengths proportional? So we need to set up a proportion to determine that. I usually like to label my corresponding sides. So I look at this rectangle and see that that's the long side of that rectangle, and then I'm going to note the long side of this rectangle. Then I want to see that that one is the short side, and then this one is the short side of that rectangle. Now I can decide to set it up where I'm going to compare the long sides over the short sides. So the long side of the larger rectangle is 45, and the short side is 25. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask ourselves, is that equal to the long side of the smaller rectangle over the short side of the smaller rectangle? There are several ways that you can determine if they are congruent. The first is you can cross multiply. The second one is you can try to find a common factor, like 45 divided by what would equal 36, and is that the same number? And then the third way is you can actually divide the fraction. What is 45 divided by 25? That equals 1.8. And then what is 36 divided by 18? That is equal to 2. However, when we see that this side is not the same as that side, that means that they are not equal and they're not proportional. So, because one of the rules wasn't true, then we're going to say no, rectangle ABCD is not similar. We're using the tilde symbol to represent similar. It's not similar to rectangle WXYZ. One of the things I do want you to recognize is that if I put side length AB here together like this, then when I match that up with this, these should be also corresponding sides. AB corresponds to WX. If I put it in the order of BC right here, when I look at side BC, that should correspond to XY. And then when I have CD, that should correspond to YZ. And then if I had AD, that would correspond to WZ. So when you're looking at the order of these letters in a given rectangle or any kind of polygon, then you want to pay attention to that order because that means that the sides are going to be corresponding in the same way. Let's look at these triangles and try to determine if they are similar figures. The first thing we want to do is look at the angles. Are they congruent? And so angle T does match up with angle G. Angle P does correspond to angle K, and they are congruent. And then angle N corresponds to angle R, and they are congruent. So the angles are fine. How about the side lengths? Now, there are two ways that we can figure out if the sides are similar. The first way would be to set up a proportion like we did here, but we would actually have to do that twice. So instead of doing